You may begin.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
No problem.
Welcome everyone to the Community Pandemic Recovery Task Force. It's November 19th and it's a beautiful fall day. I assume everyone has reviewed the package that was sent out previously. And does anyone have any additions to the agenda? Seeing no additions, I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Councillor Elmsley, thank you. Councillor Richardson, all in favor? Thank you. If anyone has to declare a pecuniary interest, please do so now. And if any were to arise throughout the meeting, please bring that to our attention at that time. Did anyone have any questions with regards to the previous minutes that were circulated? We've all had a chance to review them. Are there any corrections or any additions? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented. Thank you, Penny. And Pam. All in favor? Thank you. Just watching Holly, make sure she catches all the names. Does anyone have any business arising from the previous minutes? Seeing none, we'll move on to the funding working group update. I will be presenting on behalf of the funding working group. I just wanted to share that Brenda and I have been continuing to update all of the relevant information on Jump In. And please continue to send groups and organizations to register with Jump In so that they're able to receive as much information as they can in a timely fashion. Anybody and any number of individuals is able to register, so please just keep updating the contacts. And if you have any funding opportunities or content you'd like to be put onto that, you can send it to Brenda or myself, or you can upload it yourself as well. I just wanted to pass along the response from the grant writing workshops that were presented earlier, late in September and early October. They were very positive, so I wanted to thank Brenda Goodwin for providing her skills and knowledge and putting together and presenting the information. There's been a few follow-up emails and phone calls with regards to them, and all the participants that I've heard from were very happy and very pleased with what was presented, and it's been very helpful to them. We did send out a subsequent survey that was circulated in efforts to gather the scope of the need, more specific to the financial need and what those finances were needed for. So we did have 13 respondents. Other than the financial support, the indication from the survey was that innovation and thinking outside the box were the most requested additional support. So we can take that into consideration when we're looking ahead and planning as we move forward as a task force. The last piece that I wanted to present was the document that was circulated on Friday, and it was the Committee of the Whole document for the recommendations from the Community Pandemic Recovery Task Force. I will review a few of the quick highlights, and then we can have some discussion about that. So the key recommendations are that the applicant matching component of the 50-50 Capital Partnership Fund be removed for 2021 and 2022. It seems challenging for organizations or groups to find the matching funding, so to remove that portion of the application would be of benefit to the organizations to continue on using this specific city's funding stream as they have in the past to continue on. The next is the Lindsay Legacy Trust Fund has suspended their normal program operations for 2021 for the purpose of supporting the relief efforts to respond to COVID-19. So when the committee returns to normal program operations for 2022, we're requesting that the COVID-related operating expenditures be included in that mandate. The next recommendation is the City of Kawartha Lakes mobilize internal resources and external support to offer a series of capacity building workshops, including but not limited to developing safety protocols for operations during COVID-19, planning events during COVID-19, business and strategic planning during COVID-19, innovation and adaptation as a response to significant change, and technology training to support operations during COVID-19. Those were the significant findings that we had heard from many of the organizations, so we did try to capture that. The last recommendation is to put forth is the establishment of a Community Lakes Community Fund for the fiscal years of 2021 and 2022. So the draft framework was presented, and I can do a quick review, and then we can open it up for further discussion. Again, these are just draft considerations for council to consider. And the goals of the Kawartha Lakes Community Fund is to encourage the necessary collaboration and sharing of resources, foster the essential innovation of past operations and practices, build capacity to foster long-term sustainability, establish the internal progressive planning, to focus support on two priority aspects, survive, which would address the immediate needs of those most fragile by keeping the agencies, groups, clubs, and organizations operational, as well as to thrive. So creating an opportunity to establish innovative programming, operations, and related expenditures in efforts to move towards sustainability. So with that, I will assume folks have their own notes, and we can chat a little bit further about the draft framework. So I'll put it out to the task force if there's any questions. Yes, Councillor Elmsley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there a specific monetary ask from the city that you'll be bringing forward?
There is, in the draft framework, there isn't two amounts that are there. Those are just to provide a bit of context with regards to an amount. I would assume leaving it up to council and staff to make that decision. But we did want to provide some level of guideline with regards to the scope of the requests. Further to the survey that we had circulated, the amounts that were needed ranged anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000. And we know that there are some larger organizations out there that might need a bit more support. So we just tried to provide a best guess to provide scope and some context as to the amount that might be needed by the community.
But there's no specific dollar amount that you're asking council to put aside or to put forward?
At this time, there is not.
Okay, I think that's prudent. I think I think the way it's worded, council can consider it. There is, we don't know what's going to happen down the road. We don't know if the province is going to come forward with more funding or how much it is. And rather than paint ourselves into a corner or come up with a figure that may be totally unreasonable for council to support and therefore leave a kind of a bad taste in everybody's mouth, that doing it this way and leaving it to staff and council to try and come up with something that will meet the recommendations, I think is a wise way to go. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Elmsley. Councillor Richardson?
I want to echo the same sentiments. I agree with the recommendations that are being put forward. It's good to see that, moving forward, we can look at addressing those most vulnerable right now and what impact is going to be long-term moving into 2021. So I support everything that Councillor Emsley has said. I think it's a great direction for council to see what we've done as a group and what we are looking for recommendations moving forward. So thank you for this.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Dunn.
First of all, Heather, it's an absolutely excellent report. And obviously other councillors have got the call too. I got the ouch call. It's a big number, and I think in the final presentation of the 800,000, like $1.2 million is a scary number. There's just no way around it. It's a scary number. But of the $800,000, approximately $500,000 potentially flows. Recognizing it's tied down to Lindsay-based organizations. The first $500,000 roughly will come from the Lindsay Chess Fund. So it does make the. But I think that has to be highlighted as to where the funding is coming from. They've offered and we've accepted. So we know right off the bat, we've got $500,000 in the kitty, even though it's restricted to where we can spend it. Your report also outlines that in the second year of the $400,000, we plan on giving the Lindsay Chess Fund the flexibility to deal once again with all those Lindsay-based organizations. I think during the presentation at council, that has to be highlighted. I really like your committee setup. I'm just trying to find my 5 members that I would, because most of the people at this table, because we need you here, are also potentially organizations that that may be funded, potentially. I mean, you know, like, well, Penny's a funding organization, so she would certainly be able to, but a lot of the organizations that are represented or that might seek funding are also represented on this committee. So that'll be a challenge. I think we need to once again highlight that. But it's a great report. You've laid it out, like you've done a real professional job of laying it out. So I do like the report. As I said, I got the ouch call. That's a big number. So I think we have to highlight what our potential funding sources are, so that when it comes to council, we can identify how much money we actually have to put in as far as coming off the tax base. Some of that money, once again, will come from the partnership fund. So it's not as bad as it appears, but it's still a huge number. Unfortunately, on the 3rd, I don't know who's going to make the actual presentation. On the 3rd, I'm on holidays. I'm making inquiries to find a place where I might get internet access, and I'll drive out of the camp to come in and attend the Zoom meeting. But aside from that, I will certainly be there for the council meeting in November, and it'll be dealt with then. So thank you very much. A great report.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Both Amy and I have the time blocked for the presentation on the November 3rd meeting. I did take your notes down as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other questions or comments or feedback? Councillor Ashmore.
Thanks, Heather. You mentioned, or Councillor Elmsley asked about the amount. So the amount would be 800,000. Is that the correct amount for 2021? And also the second question is, have you looked at the federal government for sourcing, because everything is flowing from the federal government? They're the ones that are, you know, putting the billions of $300-400 billion out. So, you know, we're kind of on the lower end of the food chain here, unfortunately, as municipalities. But have you tapped into the federal government and asked our MP about some sources, Heather?
I have not talked to MP Schmale directly about any COVID-related assistance that we were able to add in, but I could definitely find that out and put it into Jump In directly for organizations to access.
All right, thanks.
Just as another note, Heather.
Yes.
golf courses.
Yes.
Once again, and I think you dealt with it in your report. Like I think it's dealt with in the report. But council will be reluctant to fund golf courses. They've potentially made a windfall when the golf course is opened up, in that rather than only renting 2 carts to a foursome, they're renting 4 carts to a foursome. So potentially, and yes, they're a nonprofit organization. And the reason why they're nonprofit is they plow all their money back into their own organization for the benefit of their members, and thus they keep their membership fees low. So yes, they're nonprofit, but no, they don't necessarily serve the community at large. They serve their membership for, so that's something else that during your presentation on the 3rd, you might want to comment on that in a general sense as opposed to a direct sense.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Rod, did you want to add anything?
Just around from process standpoint, from my understanding in our discussions is Amy and Heather will be doing the presentation on the 3rd. Just subsequent to that, they'll be sort of providing that high-level framework and recommendations. Subsequent to that, there will be a staff report coming with recommendations, direct recommendations to council that will get further into the details of the actual fund, how the fund, the scope of the fund, the source of the fund, how that might work in terms of the level and everything, as well as recommendations around the scope as in terms of the availability or the eligibility in terms of like organizations, evaluation, how that would be looked at in terms of community impact and those types of things. So that will come forward subsequent to the presentation with more specifics.
To further add to the conversation, the Economic Recovery Task Force has sent through that they are recommending, one of their recommendations that they'll be presenting is that the culture master plan implementation be accelerated, and that council will consider setting up an emergency culture sector grant program in 2021. So that piece also goes, speaks to what Rod was just saying about the scope of what we're proposing and what is also being proposed and what fund will cover what sector. So that discussion will have to come through staff and council. These recommendations will be presented and they'll all have the consideration of staff and council as well prior to being put forth on the to the full council meeting. Was there any other questions or comments or anything related to the draft recommendations or the proposed draft recommendations that Amy and I will be taking forth on the November 3rd meeting?
I just want to say how professional the report is. Like, it's a really professional, like when I read the report, I said, boy, you did a great job. So I want you to pass that on to Amy too, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Oh, Councillor Ashmore. Sorry, I just barely missed it.
All right, just a question on the PPE. Could you explain about the PPE? There's quite a bit on that. Like, how's that fitting into it, the funding for the PPE? And how that...
So what we were thinking is more permanent solutions to create physical barriers where there's counters. I'm just trying to think of an example. So maybe in a senior center, if there's a table and 2 individuals could sit at it, to have a permanent barrier that was there so that folks would feel comfortable to sit at a table and have a discussion or to be able to play bingo. So looking at the safe operation and having, if the investments are going to be made, to make sure that they're of quality and are permanent and long lasting, instead of just disposable and having to replace that.
So these are PPE that are going into private institutions, or are these like non-city facilities that you're referring to?
Yes.
That this PP, okay, all right.
So for example, a Lions Club that could still utilize their facility, or a senior center that could still provide programming, but would need permanent PPE put into place so that they could continue to serve the groups that they serve.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, Ron.
I was just going to reference as well. I mean, apart from direct fund as the one of the opportunities of some of the workshops, there may be opportunities there in areas such as PPE where it may not be a direct benefit or fund or financial support to an agency on some of those items. It may be looking at like a shared procurement process where sort of the strength of numbers, looking at, for example, like the combination of the library, service groups or anything, the procurement of that, where it could be shared to benefit from a better pricing or just access to some of those items may be a benefit as well. That's not directly related to a fund or specific financial support. That was the hope, I believe, of some of the workshops in terms of trying to coordinate just some of the access to those things as well.
Thank you, Ron. That was the last piece I wanted to make the connection between. The fourth recommendation in the document is to mobilize internal resources and external supports. And also, if you were to look into the framework and the criteria, the assessment criteria is the willingness to participate in capacity building opportunities as arranged by the task force. So that was just what Rod was speaking about. So for example, instead of having all organizations contract out an event planner, the city could organize 1 or 2 workshops and have all the organizations come to one workshop together. So instead of having an event planner at 20 different places and funding 20 different event planners, the city could facilitate a workshop with one event planner and have the 20 workshops participate in that workshop. So it's more effective use of the resources, as well as it also opens up the opportunity for collaboration and networking amongst the other organizations. But the willingness to participate in those, and we don't know exactly what all those workshops would look like. And the 5 examples provided in recommendation 4 really touch on the really high level requests and needs of the organizations, but getting down into the exact pieces will have to come out later on. What we wanted to do was encourage collaboration and be fiscally responsible as well. So that's what those workshops, that's what that piece of the workshop is, and why they're connected. Just leaving a moment for everyone to kind of ponder everything before I call for a motion to accept the recommendations as presented. All right, so thank you all to the task force members who provided your input and support on this whole process. Amy and I, we definitely took everything in stride, and it was, and we're both very impressed and very happy with the document that we're going to be presenting. So I'd like to make the motion to approve the recommendations to present to the Committee of the Whole on November 3rd. Thank you, Councillor Richardson, and Linda, thank you for seconding. And all in favor? Thank you. Just before I wrap up on my update, I just wanted to advise that through the process of creating this document, Amy and I will also be doing we will be putting together an executive summary. And in that work, we will be able to look at all of the work that this task force has done since we started back in, I believe in June was our first meeting. So at the next task force meeting, when when both Amy and I are here, we'll present that information and provide that update. We're looking to have this discussion about dissolving the 2 working groups that we've established, because those working groups have accomplished what they needed to, and then looking forward and establishing any subsequent working groups with the direction that we want to go in, or that the task force wants to go into. So thank you to both of the task force for all the work to get us to this point. And as we move forward, we'll strike up new working groups as they're needed. So thank you everyone for getting us through the first few months. It's been really great. The next motion is to receive the funding working group update as presented. So if we can have a motion for that, please. Rod and Councillor Dunn, thank you so much. Marina, do you have an update from the GAPS assessment working group?
No, not really. We met last week on Tuesday, but really we just discussed the results of the second survey and basically talked about the items that then came forward in the document that was just presented by Heather. So really it's the same information.
Thank you, Marina. May we have a motion to receive? Penny and Councillor Richardson, thank you. Is there any new business to bring forward at this time? Seeing none, is there anything to add to the roundtable discussion? Yes, Rod.
Mute. Just as an update, take a look at on the city's website. There's the overall resource, COVID resource pages, or links to various resources. I was just going to highlight based on the changes. I think they were effective last week with the federal benefits. The CERB, the former CERB, is now replaced by the new benefits. We have to update that on the city link just to get the link to the right benefits, because those benefits are all in effect now, which is the direct benefit to individuals, a combination of employment insurance benefits or the new benefits for people who don't qualify for the regular benefits. So we'll have to get that updated hopefully the next day or two. But just want to point that out, that those benefits are now in place with the expiry of the CERB. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Rod. Again, if there's anything that Brenda and I can add into to jump in, then please just let herself or myself know, or feel free to update that as needed. Is there any correspondence to be brought to our attention? No. Okay. So moving on to the next meeting. The next meeting is scheduled on Monday, November 2nd. I wanted to have a quick discussion as to whether or not we should forego the meeting, knowing that today's meeting was to prepare us for the November 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting. Does anyone have any thoughts about foregoing the November 2nd meeting? Councillor Elmsley.
I just wondered if you were planning to do a dry run before you went to the Committee of the Whole.
Are you offering up your services, Councillor Elmsley?
Only to listen.
Okay. Amy and I are planning on meeting later this week to prepare the presentation and the content, and we were hoping to connect with Rod and Brenda about that as well. So if you're offering up your services for a dry run, if there's anyone else that's interested, then we could do that prior, and we could hold this time just for that dry run if you felt that was appropriate.
I think it's probably a good idea. I think that, having several counselors listening in, we may not either, but we may have an idea of what is more palatable in terms of wording and in terms of presentation to council, that so as not to get into any trouble and have any misunderstandings.
Okay. So how would it be if we kept November 2nd at 10 as a dry run, and any task force members that are interested in participating in that, and then we could keep the next task force meeting, I believe in my calendar, it's the 9th. I think I'm on. Holly, can you confirm the next scheduled task force meeting? So my calendar is off when we.
Maybe it's the 16th, 2 weeks after.
Okay.
The 2nd and the 16th.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to,
So
if I can, just make a comment. Just on the 2nd, if I'm not sure if councilors wish, if I might recommend that instead of a regular task force meeting, if it's a dry run, that it just be an informal meeting, not a full meeting of the task force, just to review that the presentation, if that was to be the focus.
Yeah, that was my intent, Rod, that it just be a short meeting as a dry run for the presentation to council.
Thanks.
So we would forego the 2nd full task force meeting and keep the November 16th scheduled task force meeting. Okay, and those who wanted to participate in the dry run, do you show of hands? Okay, I'm just gonna Penny, Doug, Pat. All right. Yes. And Kim. I gotcha. Thank you. Okay. I think that is all, unless anybody has anything last minute comments to add to the new revised schedule or to the meeting. If not, who would like to call for an adjournment? Councillor Dunn. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Heather.
I hope everyone has a great day.